Hey guys, welcome back to the doremicom channel. We're here with part 3 of what makes a tabletop strategy game successful. With me today, again, are my panel, Warren and Tony, and we're going to jump on over to question number 6. Yes, we're at question number 6, which is the power gaming debag factor. Dun, dun, dun. Does a tabletop strategy game need to have douchebag power gamers in order to be successful? And let's go ahead and we'll open the floor up. I was going to say Warren, but we're going to go jump over to Tony. He was shaking his head too much. He gets the nod.
Well, I was shocked that you cursed on your channel because, if anyone gets that label, it's definitely me. But no, we don't need D-bags, essentially. But I think tabletop strategy games do need competitive players as much as they need the hobbyists. I think one hand washes the others. I think the hobby and the fluff and the cool painted mini get you into the game. And then saying, hey, you know what? These models are nice, but I want to take it to the next level. There's got to be a more way to make this game more back and forth, more down to the very last second than we have right now. And I think that's where it needs to go.
All right, Tony, but I said, do they need power gaming D-bags? You and I both easily identify the fact that there are plenty of them. They tend to exist no matter what game.
Not as what we describe them, though. They kill the hobby just as much as the guy who complains because you didn't paint your guy well enough. They are on the exact same, because there are hobbyist D-bags as well. So, I mean, not as often. Not so much in the U.S., I have to say. We're all pushing around gray armies here. But there are a few people who can paint Golden Demon quality, and when you paint your guy, they would say, oh, so you didn't blend anything. I've gotten that before, and I'm like, be happy he's painted. Nonetheless, that, I didn't blend it. Sorry I didn't blend it, with your combi flamer on your guy. That's really intelligent. But, I don't think you need D-bags I don't think you need D-bags in society at all. They should all just go away, but especially in our gaming.
All right, Warren, you're up, man. Power gaming D-bags. Don't stray from the question. They exist in almost every game I've ever played. So are they?
I think we need them.
Okay.
I think we need them. I do think we need them because everybody needs somebody to hate, and I think they're a big part of it. I love the cheese hunters. Do I go cheese hunting myself? No, but do I have fun watching it and listening to it? Yes, I do. And I love the guys who become so obsessed. We have Daryl, for goodness sake, and he's a total D-bag. I love the guys that get so obsessed with it that it's just, they're hilarious. I just think they're hilarious. I absolutely do. But then I can't really bring myself to take them that seriously. But I think we need them because everybody needs someone to hate, and I think that they add another flavor to the whole thing. They give it a level of just a level of credibility almost. Maybe I don't know, but I think yes. Simple answer, yes. But I'm having difficulty explaining why.
I actually agree with Warren. I know this is going to shock some people. I think power gaming douchebags are required for a game to be successful. The key element here, though, is that you can't have more than like 1 or 2%. If they're allowed to nurture and grow like mold, they will infect your game system. But
you're going to have 1 or 2, but those 1 or 2 are going to drive out 5 or 6 people. And just by that attrition factor, your percentage of how many D-bags you have is going to go up. I mean, that's what I've seen.
Well, again, like all of the people who had to come together in Lord of the Rings to take out Sauron, okay? This is the kind of mental state you have to be in, right? You have got, they are required because they provide a very weird and unique, again, excitement to the game, not from when you play, but, they get stupid excited about the game to the point where you might fully enjoy a game and then have a power gaming D-bag come in and he talks to everyone guys, come take a look at this, and I'm going to write DVDs and sell it because it's just going to be exciting. Wow! All right. But I think the problem is that they have to be in very, very thin, limited supply. I guess in all reality, I think that again, this tiny little percent needs to exist, and none of them need to be in my area. So if I can
count your answer right now. If you're not willing to adopt a D-bag,
So we
Come
get
on,
they
Brian,
can
you have to adopt one.
too.
We did.
So I think the key to success is to have 1 or 2 Power Gaming D-bags, ship them off to Siberia, and let them all stay over there playing against each other and complain about how cheesy each other's armies are. Okay. Question. Do we want to open the floor on this, or should we keep going? We'll keep going.
Let's move on past the D-bags.
All right. Yeah. Question number 7, cost. Does the cost of a tabletop strategy game lend to the success or failure? Remember, it's not whether or not you would pay a little or a lot, but rather if the cost of the game will lead to its overall success. We've seen a lot of really inexpensive games bop in and bop out. And we've seen a lot of expensive ones stick around, but it's not those rules don't always apply. Let's go ahead, Warren. What's your take on this?
I don't think cost's that important, to be honest. If someone has, we talk about the gamer gene or the war gamer gene. If someone has this thing in them that they'll look at a miniature or something and they'll go, "Oh, I've got to have it." I don't think the cost, so long as it's not prohibitively expensive. If every model cost the prices of Forge World, we wouldn't have wargaming, if you know what I mean. So as long as it doesn't get to that extent, but I think at the costs as they are right now, it's an expensive hobby, but it's by no means the most expensive hobby you could pick up. I think it's pretty down there. However, I think it's vital from a game company point of view to charge as much as they can for their game, because the reason these little cheapy games come and go is because they undercapitalize. They don't have the revenues to keep going. So I think it's important to charge as much as you can, get away with really for your game, because people are not paying for the model; they're paying for the model and the continuation of the game, the R&D and the design and the development of all the other stuff that's to come. So I think it's important to charge as much as you can.
Tony, what's your take?
I can't agree enough. It's a simple business practice of perceived value. The better your product is and the happier that game makes the person, the more the consumer is willing to spend on it. Now, it should be priced at a fair market value for the industry, but to be honest, if your consumer is willing to spend X plus 10, charge X plus 10, because, you need to make as much revenue as possible. These are a business. In the end, the consumer votes with their dollar. It's an open and free market. It's a double-edged sword, but, if I was in this hobby, coming from a business perspective, I would charge as much as I possibly could, especially because, everybody else does. Privateer Press, you need less miniatures, so it costs you less. But if you look at the amount of miniatures you get for the cost, it's comparable to GW, to be perfectly honest. And, they're there to make money and continue to provide that service. And, cash flows go up and down. So get what you can when you can.
All right. I actually disagree with these guys just a little bit. I think cost is a bit of a factor to the game, especially depending on the stage of where it's at. If you're just creating a brand new tabletop game, for instance, cost is key. It is, because the only way you're going to get people in to feed your initial fan base is to get the product out. And I also think that any kind of starter set pretty much across the board pretty much needs to be at a considerably low profit margin. Beyond that, when you start talking about some of these other models, then yeah, I completely agree with Tony and Warren. But I think from the initial standpoint of how much a game should cost to enter, not to flourish in, but to enter, needs to be a low barrier to entry for any gamer. Continued debate about this?
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I agree. I agree a bit on the idea of a starter box. Yeah, like I've gave GW hell on the way they've been their whole strategy around the starter box, but I give them hell because I know they could have volume. So I can understand them really reducing the price because they could have huge volume. You take Space Hulk. Space Hulk could have been the perfect introduction to 40K, much more so than the 40K rulebook itself. But they opted not to go down that route. But for a small company starting out, I don't think cost is necessarily. I think beautiful miniatures are the key. If you create beautiful, beautiful miniatures, people will look at them and go, oh. Because remember, a small company starting out is only going to be able to create a handful of them anyway. They're never going to be able to come out with a full game's worth of miniatures. So start off by creating beautiful miniatures, price them appropriately, and keep producing them until you have a critical mass, which is enough of them to then roll out a game. I think the problem is any company that starts with a low price are going to have difficulty in raising their prices later on. So, I would say come in where you need to be to continue your work and to continue it effectively, because being there is much more important than being cheap, as far as I'm concerned.
Tony?
Cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. I run scenarios in the back of my business brain regarding how you're going to, finance it on the short term. And Warren's right. You can't price low end of the market and then say, wait, we now have a premium product a year from now when all of our loans ran out, and jack the price up. Well, the pricing you start with, that core where infantry costs X and tanks usually cost Y and books usually cost Z, that's where you need to keep your pricing consistent. And really, it's about a fantastic product. And, taking outside of wargaming, you look at, Apple's products, you look at Google Android's product. I'm beating up on telecom here, but, people will pay for an excellent product. When you put out a piece of crap and you charge a lot of money, that's where you're going to get hurt. And I think both, not so much Privateer Press, but GW has done some of that where it's obscenely priced for what they're providing, putting it in a metal kit when it could have been plastic. Battle boxes are a perfect example where I have to spend $100 plus tax on a battle box that doesn't come with enough to field the basic troop and 2 HQs. Those things are faults on the company, but, cash is king, and so is this cash flow situation.
So here's a good question. Can the rule system for a game be free?
Yes, it should be. It should be free in PDF, and then you don't have the cost of production and shipping. And then that gets spread tumultuously through the internet because GW has no illusions. I have every one of their codexes on PDF before it's released. So, this illusion that, people are buying the book. I tell you, in the U.S., I see a lot of people with printouts punched holes from Kinko's that go to the store with that book. As unfavorable as I don't agree with that, you should buy the rule book at least from the gaming store to support it. That's the way it should be. And then that would allow for updates to the Codex, which would be fantastic, instead of erratas, which would be instantaneous and perfect.
I believe that the rule set should be free, but I also believe you should have a beautifully bound version of the rule set to ensure that you enshrine that feel of quality for your game. If everybody's running around with a crappy printed PDF, it's not going to be long before people start to feel the value of the game is a bit compared to some people having this beautifully presented version of the game. But can the rule set be free? Absolutely, the rule set can be free. It doesn't necessarily have to be free, but it can be. I don't think that's going to be a big problem. These guys are making money from their shipping plastics or the metals or the resins or whatever else. And that has to be the core. Every time Workshop sets out to create a codex, the first thing they're thinking of is not what they can do cool with the army, is what more models can we shift off the back of this? And the business decisions on the models then dictate how the designers work with the codex.
Right.
So
I would not disagree with that statement whatsoever. But I think that actually, for your long-term veteran players who find that their Carnifexes no longer are useful after investing quite a bit of money in them, is a good way to shoot yourself in the foot. Guys, we're going to go ahead and jump straight to the prediction question. It's number 8 this time instead of number 6. We're having an extended one. Kind of excited about having our first across the Atlantic person on the show. Hooah. Okay, so make a prediction on what factors will play the largest role in 2011 on existing or new tabletop games. They can be based on factors we've discussed or any other factor you can think of, and we're actually going to start with Tony.
I have a prepared statement, and it's a United States bias, so I'm going to throw that out there right now. I believe that GW's future and the overall future of tabletop wargaming faces basically an unprecedented moment in history. We have a majority of gamers like Brian and myself that are very independent and have no strong sentiments towards either the extreme hobbyist or the extreme gamer. We also possess a small minority of extremely vocal members who stand on either side of the spectrum screaming at each other about how the hobby or the gaming is more important than the other. And people like Brian and me, and the majority of the independents, stand in the middle and hear both of this. So unless we are able to, as independents, rise up in this tumultuous environment and take back the hobby for what it really is, which is enjoying everything, I could see 2012 being where we're going to lose a lot of miniatures gaming and a lot of miniatures players.
Warren, your take on it. Whoa. You're not allowed to debate someone's prediction. Predictions are sacred here on the RTD. Warren.
My apologies. I'm sure it'll happen.
Warren, it's your turn, man. It's your turn to make the sacred prediction.
I predict that we have just entered the golden age of wargaming. I think that we're about to see wargaming become more accessible than it's ever been. I believe that the ramp up to get involved in wargaming is going to be less steep. It's going to be easier to get into, and I think that even the whole stigma of tabletop gaming is going to start to change. I think we are now where video gaming was maybe 15 years ago. It was the realm of the geek, but it was about to start its entrance into mainstream. Will wargaming go as mainstream as video gaming? No, because it's not as accessible. It's not as pick up and play. But we have some innovative companies out there like Bastion Studios, with Exilis, who are trying new ways. They're trying to shake up the market. Are they there yet? No, but they're smart guys. They may well work it out. But I think we're entering the golden age of wargaming. There's more companies starting up now. The whole production costs have come way down, so more guys are getting involved in plastics than ever before. We have 3D printing on the horizon now, where you're going to get high-resolution 3D prints. I think it's going to skyrocket. I think that the key to it, though, is making it more accessible to people, making it easier for them to pick it up as a hobby and put it away and then pick it up again.
Okay, so I apologize. I want to make sure that we're getting your full answer. I'm not debating it. The largest factor to the keys to success for you is making the game easier for people to buy. But what's that major key factor thing?
It's not about making the game easier to buy. It's making the hobby easier to get into. And the key factor, the internet, is what you're doing here, Brian. It's this connectivity for me is the major factor. All of the rest of this is interesting stuff. All these questions are very important to game companies, but it's what you and we are all doing now that are going to make the biggest impact on wargaming, because it's easier for people now to get into it than it's ever been before, because they can get access to the information and they're not relying on a local gaming store 50 miles away that they have to try and travel to see that, or relying on some know-it-all character who always come in, I know the new stuff and you don't, and you'll have to bow down and basically worship me before I tell you. Now all this information's there, and people can decide what's cool and what's not. That, for me, is the number one dynamic shift, and that is what's going to make the difference.
All right. It's the internets, according to Warren. It's the taking back the hobby by the non super opinionated, according to Tony. For me, I think my prediction is that the biggest factor, by far and away, is going to be having existing fan base who are nurturing to each other. I think dropping the psycho-competitiveness that exists in the U.S. is key to a tabletop strategy game success. And you're seeing companies like Privateer Press who are actually promoting this notion with their press gangers, which are starting to pop up in all different markets in the U.S., and they're being kind of rewarded, with a model or two here or there to literally go out, evangelize about the game, but also be there be there for someone to play against. So a person's first experiences with playing a tabletop strategy games are away from your power gaming douchebags. You know, if I had to pick number 2, I would say internets. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up real quick. Thank you guys for showing up. Warren, thank you for popping in. Tony, as always, thank you for being there. And we'll come at you with another RTD soon. Have a good one, guys.